We started with biology, moved on to chemistry, and now we continue with physics. Molecules are made up of atoms like hydrogen and oxygen. The most well-known formation of atoms is H2O, or water. In fact, there are only 4 essential elements for life: hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon. An atom is so small that it is invisible to the naked eye. That is why, for many years, the fact that matter is made of atoms was only a theory. The idea that matter is comprised of discrete units is a very old idea, appearing in many ancient cultures such as Greece and India. But since then, it has been proven that every solid, liquid, gas, and plasma is composed of neutral or ionized atoms. For example, when you look at a table, you only get the illusion that it is one indivisible object. But in reality, it is made of small atoms attached together like the bricks of a house. Where do atoms come from? The first type of atom was hydrogen, and billions of it was born right after the Big Bang. The hydrogen is the simplest atom, and all other atoms were created from it inside stars through nuclear fusion. When 2 hydrogen atoms are fused at a very high temperature, helium is created. This kind of fusion is repeated step by step inside stars until the element of iron is reached on the periodic table. This is when the star runs out of its fuel and goes out of existence with a huge explosion called a supernova. This releases so much energy that it creates every other element on the periodic table. These elements are the building blocks of all physical reality that we perceive. Between the atoms, there are invisible bonds that hold them together and make objects dense. This is why your hands don't pass through the table. The atoms inside your hands and the table are both so dense that they repel each other. But the atoms inside water are much less dense, so you can easily submerge your hands in it. We see physical objects as solid and unchanging, but this is far from reality. The atoms are constantly moving around and bumping into each other. The faster they move, the hotter they are. When we heat up an object, its atoms start moving faster, and this is how the object diffuses its own heat to its surroundings. It is the same process when you start to shake a glass full of water. Some of it will inevitably spill out onto the floor. With this in mind, do a simple exercise for the next few days. When you look at something, imagine the atoms that it is made of. This is imagination in the sense that you cannot see the atoms with your eyes, but not in the sense that it is not true. You have to realize that nothing exists in itself. Everything is the sum of its components. A table, a chair, the body, the sun. These are only definitions made by humans, but in reality, they are only collections of invisible atoms held together by the forces of nature. When you look at your body, see its atoms, and recognize how divisible it is. Until something is divisible, it is not the ultimate reality. Thus, your body is not really real. It is simply a collection of atoms. The name atom comes from the Latin word indivisible. However, after giving the name, scientists realized that even atoms are made up of subatomic particles. Every atom is composed of a nucleus and one or more electrons attached to it. The nucleus itself consists of one or more protons and typically a similar number of neutrons. But what is this mysterious force that holds the subatomic particles, the atoms, the chemicals, the cells, the body, and the whole world together? Why doesn't everything simply just fall apart into its pieces? This force is called energy, and it is becoming less and less mysterious. Scientists and mystics have gone a long way to reveal its secrets. Energy has many forms, but only one source. Inside the nucleus, the protons and neutrons are attracted to each other by the nuclear force. Between the nucleus and the electrons, This energy is known as the electromagnetic force. One level higher, the atoms are held together by chemical bonds, which is another form of energy. Cells in multicellular organisms are held together by cell junctions and by the so-called bioenergy. But what is energy, more precisely? Well, it is difficult to give a clear definition because everything is energy, and energy is everything. The common description is the ability of a system to perform work, but this is quite vague. The first scientist who delved into this area defined energy as a living force. It can also be said that energy is closely related to mass. When energy gets trapped in a system with zero momentum, we can weigh it. In fact, all matter and all of physical reality is the outcome of the existence and the movement of energy. Besides the forms that I listed above, there is the kinetic energy of a moving object, the radiant energy carried by light, the gravitational, the electric, the magnetic, the elastic, the thermal, and many other forms of energy. The interesting thing is that one form of energy can be converted into another, but energy cannot be created or destroyed. This is known as the first law of thermodynamics, which also means that there is a given amount of energy in the universe. According to this, energy is eternal because it was never created and will never be destroyed. The whole universe is the interplay of the different forms of energy, but energy ultimately is always one and cannot be divided. Because of this, energy is not different from consciousness. It has the same properties. The source of consciousness is also one. What we perceive is the different forms of consciousness in ourselves and in others. On the level of spirituality, the whole universe is the interplay of one single consciousness that manifests in different forms. The gap between science and spirituality is growing smaller every day. Mystics are becoming more scientific, while scientists are becoming more and more spiritual. The point of going through the different levels of science is to show you how everything begins and ends in spirituality. Thus, it is the ultimate reality. Science naturally started with biology. Because it can be perceived directly, it is right in front of us. If we start to go below the biological level, we find chemistry, then physics, and recently the field of quantum physics. On this level of reality, they found almost nothing but empty space when they looked closely inside atoms. Quantum physicists say that matter is an illusion and that we create reality with our consciousness. These scientists are stating the same things that mystics have been saying for thousands of years. On the other hand, if we move above the level of biology, we find psychology. Psychology is a relatively young science that examines thoughts, emotions, and behavior. However, it deals only with the mind, but there are levels even beyond that. Some psychologists realized these limitations and created humanistic psychology, an approach that emphasizes the individual's inherent drive towards self-actualization, the process of realizing and expressing one's own capabilities and creativity. Spirituality is only one step above this. It suggests that you can change your thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and even your circumstances, instead of letting them control you. It states that you create your own reality and you are the ultimate master of your own faith. It says that everybody and everything is one, and the world is only an illusion in this eternal consciousness. With this, we reached a full circle. We reached the point where the eternal snake bites its own tail. We all know that energy is essential to life. For humans, the most important form of energy comes from breathing, which mystics call prana or chi. On a biological level, the energy stored in cells release energy when they react with oxygen in respiration. With breathing, we take in the energy of the air element, while eating and sleeping recharges us with earth energy. Drinking connects us to the element of water, while we take heat energy from the sun, and humans also learned how to make a fire to be able to use its power. The four elements are four different forms of energy, but their source is the same. This source is called ether or akasha, sometimes known as the fifth element. It is a quasi-element, the pure manifestation of energy, or rather energy itself. Living organisms require available energy to stay alive, such as the energy humans get from food. Civilization gets the energy it needs from energy resources such as fossil fuels. The processes of Earth's climate and ecosystem are driven by the radiant energy it receives from the sun and the geothermal energy contained within. There is chemical energy stored in the bonds that hold together the elements inside molecules of cells. If we go even deeper, inside an atom, we find stored electromagnetic energy between the nucleus and the electrons, while the nucleus itself is held together by nuclear energy. Stored energy is also called potential energy because when it is released, it gets converted into a different form. This conversion process always produces waste, which escapes into the surroundings and diffuses. For example, when you lift up your arm, a small amount of heat always escapes from your body. The loss of energy is irreversible. Just like when you put sugar in hot tea, you cannot separate them again. Certainly, if we look at the universe as a whole, this energy is not lost. It simply transforms from stored energy to diffused energy, which is not useful anymore. The second law of thermodynamics states that all systems doing work always lose some energy as waste heat. However, this waste or loss is the very thing that makes life possible. All life forms get energy from waste processes, and the universe itself evolves through the release of energy. Plants feed on the waste heat of the sun, while animals live on the waste material of photosynthesis, oxygen. On the other hand, animals feed by releasing the stored energy inside plants and other animals. When we want to cook food or get warm, we release this same energy in the form of light and heat and create a fire. The main energy source of human civilization today is stored inside fossil fuels, but this trend is slowly changing as we become more ecological. The whole ecosystem is feeding on the waste energy of the sun and the geothermal energy contained within the earth. When these energy sources become depleted, all life forms will die with them. When all the energy stored in the universe gets released, the universe as we know it will die. This ultimate fate will be the end result of the second law of thermodynamics, otherwise known as entropy. Entropy is a state of disorder as opposed to a state of order. It is a state of chaos as opposed to a state of cosmos. According to the second law of thermodynamics, the entropy of an isolated system never decreases. Such a system will spontaneously proceed towards thermodynamic equilibrium, towards maximum entropy. Evolution is the history of specialization and a continuous process towards more and more order. The human body with the brain is the most complex order that we know of. But humanity and Earth are only very tiny parts of an incredibly large universe. Even though we experience more and more order on our own level, the universe as a whole is falling apart. To understand entropy, let us take a look at the world from another point of view. We have to understand that the manifest world is built upon the principle of duality and difference. We can see light because there is darkness behind. We can differentiate between the colors because they have different wavelengths. If there was a homogeneous light in all points of space, there would be no shadows, and we couldn't see anything besides the light. If all the colors were the same, there would be only one color. Then, we wouldn't even use the word color. We wouldn't even know that there is such a thing. When everything becomes homogenic, perfectly divided in time and space, everything becomes the same. When everything becomes the same, everything becomes one. But at the same time, everything becomes nothing as well. We can observe the world because the cells, the molecules, the atoms, and the nuclei are held together by energy. When all this energy gets released over time, everything breaks down into its components, which is energy itself. If we take a close look at reality, we find that the stuff that matter is made of are not atoms and not even subatomic particles. At the turn of the 19th century, physicists started to explore the relationship between energy and the structure of matter with advanced microscopes. They observed a tornado inside an atom, which consisted of other infinitely small vortices called quarks and photons. But as they started to zoom in even more with their microscopes to find out what these consisted of, they found empty space. At the core of an atom, there is nothing except physical void. The atom has no physical structure, therefore physical matter is not really physical at all. Atoms are made of invisible energy, not tangible matter. Therefore, the whole universe with everything and everyone inside it is made of energy. This elusive energy should be called the real atom because it cannot be divided anymore. It is the ultimate level of physical reality. Everything is energy, and energy is everything. This is not only a theory, but it has also been proven time and time again by multiple Nobel Prize-winning physicists. With this discovery, quantum physics was born, and a new era of science started. According to it, the whole world is a large network of constantly flowing energy. What we perceive as concrete matter is really just mostly empty space. In the previous module, we dealt with the physical world and the physical body. But in this second module, we will learn that the world is not physical at all. And as the body is also part of the physical world, it is also completely made up of energy. The laws of the old Newtonian physics are simply not true in the world of quantum physics. Just like the fact that you are your physical body is not true anymore on this level. There are different levels of truths, and we jump one level with each step until we reach the final truth. Quantum physicists discovered that physical atoms are made up of vortices of energy that are constantly spinning and vibrating, each one radiating its own unique energy signature. Energy healers around the world have been well aware of this fact for thousands of years. At the human level, this signature has been known by energy healers as the aura. But energy is not only inside your body, but it is also everywhere. This all-encompassing and invisible energy field connects all of us. It is the building block of our bodies and the whole world. We can perceive only a very small part of this energy field with our limited senses. We can perceive concrete matter and light. These are the parts of the energy field that are more condensed. So, the body is made up of condensed energy, and it is less and less subtle as we increase the distance from the body. The ancient healers also realized that problems in the energy body cause diseases directly in the physical one. Every disease appears first in the aura only as a blueprint, as a future possibility. If the energy stays blocked or congested in the energy body for too long, the disharmony will manifest as a disease in the physical body. Some healers can see the aura and can identify and even forecast illnesses from it. The aura, otherwise known as the etheric, pranic, or energy body, is really just one form of the all-pervasive energy. I will use the Sanskrit word prana to differentiate it from pure energy, which has a more general meaning. The physical body is built on the structure of the pranic body. When prana leaves the body dies. When the body gets irreversibly damaged, the prana also leaves the body but doesn't disappear immediately. The physical matter of the body is held together by this dense bioenergy. The aura is that part of the prana which is outside of the body. 1-2 centimeters around the body, the prana is still very thick, and it forms the first layer of the aura. As we move further and further away from the physical body, the aura becomes more and more thin. However, it doesn't have a definite end, it simply has layers upon layers, which extend to infinity. Energy healers differentiate between the inner and the outer aura. The inner aura follows the contours of the body and can be the most easily seen. The outer aura extends to about 1 meter from the body and has a shape of an egg. These layers are quite arbitrary, though, because we are living in an all-encompassing space of prana, and we are all connected by it. Just like planets are formed through the condensation of energy, plants, animals, and humans are condensed bioenergy. Our normal perception is that we are separate from each other. We see ourselves as distinct islands on a sea. But deep below, we are all connected energetically, just like the islands are part of the same seabed underwater. But as the water constrains our view, we cannot see this connection. Just like we cannot normally see the subtle energies of prana, because our eyes are trained to perceive physical matter or the gross form of energy. But we don't always want to be affected by other people's energies. Usually, we want to defend ourselves against energy vampires, and who may want to abuse or attack us. The aura also serves as a protective shield against lower and disturbed forms of energy. In fact, it is the foremost layer of the immune system. When we balance our auras, we automatically help the body heal itself as well. The aura is not only a theory, but the process of Kirlian photography also proved its existence. When someone is photographed with this special camera, a colorful, halo-like structure can be seen around the body. This also works for animals and plants, and even for immaterial objects. When a leaf is cut off from a branch, the energetic blueprint remains there for a while. It can still be photographed. It appears like a glowing ghost of the dead leaf. Besides, the edges of the aura are not smooth. Tiny energy lines stick out from them, just like hairs stick out from skin. Interestingly, when water freezes around a leaf, the ice takes up the exact forms of these energy lines, which we can easily observe in winter. Water itself is very sensitive to this subtle energy field and always follows its shape. It is a perfect natural mirror. The human aura is the invisible bridge between the body and the emotions. Different emotions manifest as different colors in the outer aura. Besides, emotions cause distinct sensations in the body through energy. For example, hatred has a prickly energy. It almost feels like the other person is stabbing you with a knife again and again. In his aura, his own energy also becomes prickly, and when it connects to yours, you can sense this subconsciously. Later, we will learn the energetic imprints of various emotions and how to sense them consciously. The outer aura is changing as rapidly as emotions. It can be affected from the outside by the environment or by other people. It can also be affected from inside through your emotions, and in turn, your outer aura can affect your environment and others. There is an interplay of flowing energy where you both give and receive. If you don't want to be a passive victim of your environment anymore, you have to learn to be conscious of your energy. The inner aura is much closer to your body and much more stable. This layer represents your character, your normal mode of functioning and behavior. Everybody has a dominant color of the inner aura, just like everybody has a dominant psychological character. Some people are better at leading, while others are more creative or intuitive. This information can all be seen with a glance of an experienced clairvoyant. As a baby, you could directly perceive the aura. Babies' pupils are usually 2 times bigger than adults. Your eyes used to be able to let in more frequencies before, but they were poor in focusing and measuring depth. LSD has the same effect on vision. It dilutes the pupils, thus letting you see more aspects of reality. But you lose the ability to focus and judge distance, so everything blurs together and makes orientation harder. You could not only see the aura, but even touch it as well. You slowly lost this ability as you grew up because your parents encouraged you to focus on the physical reality, which is directly relevant for survival. You lost your sensitivity to these subtle energies, but with the help of some simple exercises, you can learn to sense the aura again. Being aware of prana is of utmost importance, yet most of us are not connected to the world energetically on a conscious level. This knowledge is not only important to become more healthy, but to see the world from a whole different level and shift your consciousness. First, you have to be able to sense this energy, then use it, and finally become aware that you are beyond it. You can use this knowledge for energy healing, but the focus is not on this here. This is not a course for clairvoyants or healers. The relevant thing is to discover a new dimension of life that has been hidden so far from you, to make the existence of prana your own experience and not just create a belief. To become aware of energy just like you became aware of the body, and then realize that you are beyond both. We will apply the same technique on the energy level that we used at the body level. Feel it, free it, see it, leave it. I will share with you a simple but effective exercise to develop your sensitivity to energy. You will be able to see it with your own eyes and realize that what I am speaking about is not only a theory, but this energy field really exists. There are two parts of this practice, and they are deeply interconnected. This first part will let you sense your own energy, even if you have never done this before. Anybody can do it because everybody has this energy, and everyone can be made sensitive enough to feel it. As you are sitting in your chair, take a deep breath and just relax. Now, raise your hands and make a clap. Then, start rubbing your palms to each other for 30 seconds. After you stopped rubbing, keep your hands close together with your palms facing each other and with your fingers straight. Now, start to slowly increase the distance between your palms by moving them away from each other. First, make the distance just 1 centimeter and start to slowly go up to 2, 3, and even more. You will feel warmth, maybe even tingling, and a kind of magnetic connection between them. Increase the distance until you can still feel the energy in your palms. If you lose the sensation of energy, go back a little and focus more on the feeling. It is fine to imagine the energy until you start to feel something. It usually works well if you imagine a ball of energy between your hands and try to make it bigger and bigger. Sometimes you will experience that you cannot close your hands because the energy ball has so much force that it keeps your hands in the air without using any of your muscles. If you successfully went through the energy ball exercise a couple of times, move on to the second part of the practice. It is best to try this at night or in a room with almost total darkness. The lighting is optimal when you can hardly see your hands, but you can still take out its contours. Now clap your hands and rub your palms for 30 seconds. Afterwards, start to increase the distance again, but this time only between your left and right index fingers. When you are looking at your fingers, the background area has to be monochrome, so it is best to do this exercise facing a wall. Now, slowly move your 2 fingers away from each other to 1 centimeter and stop. Move your fingers up and down slowly while keeping them in close distance. You can increase the distance a little more to experiment. The most important aspect to be able to see your aura between your fingers is the way you look at it. Instead of focusing, relax your eyes. The aura can be seen in your peripheral vision. Don't look at your fingers. Look at the space between them. And don't look directly at this area. Look 1 or 2 meters behind your fingers. If you practice enough, you will be able to see your own aura very soon. It looks like a thin white line surrounding your fingers and your whole body. And when you move your fingers up and down, it will look like a small electric current whirling between your fingers. You should practice sensing the energy every day this week.